Librarian of Congress James Billington points to a correction in the rough draft of the Declaration of Independence written by Thomas Jefferson, on July 2, 2010, at the Library of Congress in Washington. Imaging of the document confirmed that Jefferson originally wrote "subject," then changed it to "citizen." Image credit, Susan Walsh. Over the past 32 years, Morning Edition has broadcast a reading of the Declaration of Independence by NPR staff as a way of marking Independence Day. But after last summer's protests and our national reckoning on race, the words in the document land differently. It famously declares that all men are created equal, even though women, enslaved people and Indigenous Americans were not held as equal at the time. What then follows is a long list of grievances and charges against King George III that outline the 13 North American British Colonies' intentions to separate from Great Britain. The list, originally written largely by Thomas Jefferson, was edited by the Continental Congress. Among the Congress changes, it deleted a reference to Scotch and foreign mercenaries. It turns out there were members of Congress who were of Scottish descent. To win support from Southerners, the Congress removed criticism of the African slave trade. But a racist slur about Native Americans stayed in. The passage charges that King George III excited domestic insurrections among the colonists by Native Americans, who the founding document called merciless Indian savages. Author David Treuer, who is Ojibwe from the Leech Lake Reservation, explains that this particular grievance refers to the idea that the British were, he says, ginning up discontent among native people. But a deeper look at history also shows that one of the reasons why the colonists wanted to rise up against the British, and wage the Revolutionary War, was over the question of who would try to colonize native lands west of the colonies, Treuer tells Morning Edition. The Crown wanted that money for themselves. The colonists, understandably, would have preferred to have it for themselves. So the whole revolution was in large part fought over who got to take our stuff, he says. He also notes that native people helped the colonists in the Revolutionary War. It was the Oneida people who broke the famine at Valley Forge, who taught the revolutionaries with George Washington how to process Indian corn so that it was digestible and nutritious, he says. So I think it's safe to say that war would be difficult to win without our help. When it comes to how the Declaration's words land among Native Americans, Treuer says that with more than 5 million people who identify as indigenous, there is a diversity of opinion and thought. On one hand, we are keenly aware of the ways in which this country has attempted to both take our homelands and to eradicate us. And yet a huge number of native people are deeply patriotic.